Hello everyone, I've got another story for you from Funny Stories chosen by Michael Rosen. This story is called The Stowaways, and what I like about this story is it really reminds me of home because it's set in Liverpool. So I need to explain a couple of things before I read the story. First of all, Liverpool is a bit like Newcastle. It's a riverside city, it's a port, and there's Liverpool on one side and Birkenhead on the other side of the river, a bit like Newcastle and Gateshead. And the river in Liverpool is called the Mersey. Okay, so Newcastle's got the Tyne, Liverpool's got the Mersey. And something else that plays an important part in this story is the drink rum, which is a strong alcoholic drink drunk by sailors. Okay, so this story is called The Stowaways by Roger McGough. When I lived in Liverpool, my best friend was a boy called Midge. Kevin Midgley was his real name, but we called him Midge for short. And he was short, only about 3 cornflake packets high, empty ones at that. No three ways about it. Midge was my best friend, and we had lots of things in common. Things we enjoyed doing, like climbing trees, playing footy, going to the pitches, hitting each other really hard. And there were things we didn't enjoy doing, like sums, washing behind our ears, eating cabbage. But there was one thing that really bound us together, one thing we had in common: a love of the sea. In the old days, but not so long ago, the River Mersey was far busier than it is today. Those were the days of the great passenger liners and cargo boats. Large ships sailed out of Liverpool for Canada, the United States, South Africa, the West Indies, all over the world. My father had been to sea, and so had all my uncles and my grandfather. 6'6", muscles rippling in the wind, huge hands grappling with the helm, rum-soaked and fierce as a wounded shark. And that was only my grandmother. By the time they were 20, most young men in this city had visited parts of the globe I can't even spell. In my bedroom each night, I used to lie in bed. Best place to lie, really. I used to lie there, especially in winter, and listen to the foghorns being sounded all down the river. I could picture the ship nosing its way out of the docks into the channel and out into the Irish Sea. It was exciting. All those exotic places, all those exciting adventures. Midge and I knew what we wanted to do when we left school: become sailors. A captain, an admiral, perhaps one day even a steward. Of course, we were only about 7 or 8 at the time, so we thought we'd have a long time to wait. But oddly enough, the call of the sea came sooner than we'd expected. It was a Wednesday, if I remember rightly. I never liked Wednesdays for some reason. I could never spell it for a start, and it always seemed to be raining, and there were still 2 days to go before the weekend. Anyway, Midge and I got into trouble at school. I don't remember what for. Something trivial, I suppose, like chewing gum in class, forgetting how to read, or setting fire to the music teacher. I forget now. But we were picked on, nagged, told off, and all those boring things that grown-ups get up to sometimes. And of course, to make matters worse, my mum and dad were in a right mood when I got home. Nothing to do with me, of course, because as you have no doubt gathered by now, I was the perfect child, clean, well-mannered, obedient, soft in the head. But for some reason, I was being clipped round the ear and sent to bed early for being childish. Childish, I ask you. I was a child. A child acts his age. What does he get? Wallop. So that night in bed, I decided, yes, you've guessed it. I could hear the big ships calling out to each other as they sidled out the Mersey into the oceans beyond, the tugs leading the way like proud little guide dogs. That's it. We'd run away to sea, Midge and I. I'd tell him the good news in the morning. The next 2 days just couldn't pass quickly enough for us. We decided to begin our amazing around-the-world voyage on Saturday morning, so that in case we didn't like it, we'd be back in time for school on Monday. As you can imagine, there was a lot to think about. What clothes to take, how much food and drink. We decided on 2 sweaters each and wellies in case we ran into storms around Cape Horn. I read somewhere that sailors lived off rum and dry biscuits, so I poured some of my dad's into an empty pop bottle and I borrowed a handful of half-coated chocolate digestives. I also packed my Lone Star cap gun, and Midge settled on a magnifying glass. On Friday night, we met round at his house to make the final plans. He lived with his granny and his sister, so there were no nosy parents to discover what we were up to. We hid all the stuff in the shed in the yard and arranged to meet outside his back door next morning at the crack of dawn or sunrise, whichever came first. Sure enough, Saturday morning, when the big finger was on 12 and the little one was on 6, Midge and I met with our little bundles under our arms and ran up the street as fast as our tiptoes could carry us. Hardly anyone was about, and the streets were so quiet and deserted except for a few pigeons straddling home after all-night parties. It was a very strange feeling, as if we were the only people alive and the city belonged entirely to us. And soon the world would be ours as well, once we'd stowed away on a ship bound for somewhere far off and exciting. By the time we'd got down to the pier head, though, a lot more people were up and about, including a policeman who eyed us suspiciously. Hello, 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 he said. And where are you two going so early in the morning? Fishing, I said. Train spotting, said Midge. And we looked at each other. Just so long as you're not running away to sea. Oh no, we chorused, just as if. He winked at us. Off you go then, and remember to look both ways before crossing your eyes. We ran straight down to the landing stage where a lot of ships were tied up. There was no time to lose because already quite a few were putting out to sea, their sirens blowing, the hundreds of seagulls squeaking excitedly, all tossed into the air like giant handfuls of confetti. Then I noticed a small ship just to the left where the crew were getting ready to cast off. They were so busy doing their work that it was easy for Midge and me to slip on board unnoticed. Up the gangplank we went, straight up on the top deck where there was nobody around. The sailors were all busy down below, hauling in heavy ropes and revving up the engine that turned the great propellers. We looked around for somewhere to hide. I know, let's climb down the funnel, said Midge. Great idea, said, taking the mickey. Or better still, let's disguise ourselves as a pair of seagulls and perch up there on the mast. Then I spotted them, the lifeboats. Quick, let's climb into one of those. They'll never look in there, not unless we run into icebergs anyway. So in we climbed, and no sooner had we covered ourselves with a tarpaulin than there was a great shuddering, and the whole ship seemed to turn round on itself. We were off! Soon we'd be digging for diamonds in the Brazilian jungle or building sandcastles on a tropical island. But we had to be patient. We knew that. Those places are a long way away. It could take days, even months. So we were patient, very patient, until after what seemed like hours and hours, we decided to eat our rations, which I divided up equally. I gave Midge all the rum, and I had all the biscuits. Looking back at it now, that probably wasn't a good idea, especially for Midge. What with the rolling of the ship, and not having had any breakfast, and the excitement, and a couple of swigs of rum, well, you can guess what happened. All over the place, we pulled back the sheet and decided to give ourselves up. We were too far away at sea now for the captain to turn back. The worst he could do was to clap us in irons or shiver our timbers. We climbed down onto the deck, and as Midge staggered to the nearest rail to feed the fishes, I looked out to sea, hoping to catch sight of a whale or a shoal of dolphins, perhaps see the coast of America coming into view. And what did I see? The Liver buildings. Anyone can make a mistake, can't they? I mean, we went to know we'd stowed away on a ferry boat, one that goes from Liverpool to Birkenhead and back again, toing and froing across the Mersey. We'd done 4 trips hidden in a lifeboat and ended up back in Liverpool. And we'd only been away about an hour and a half. Ah well, so much for running away to sea, we thought, as we disembarked, although disemboweled might be a better word as far as Midge was concerned. Rum? Yuck! We got the bus home. My mum and dad were having their breakfast. Aye, aye, said my dad. Here comes the early bird. And what have you been up to then? I ran away to sea, I said. That's nice, said my mum, shaking out the cornflakes. That's nice.